You are listening to Keenan Live, where I'm going to be talking to the interesting, the rebellious, and the successful. People who do things that others just can't or won't. Hey, what's going on, peeps? It is Keenan. Listen, welcome to Keenan Live 1. What is Keenan Live? Look, Keenan Live is about, I'm going to be talking to the interesting, the rebellious, and the successful. And the whole point of this is to bring a podcast that gets you guys thinking and exploring and meeting new people that are making impact. And in my opinion, if you're not interesting, if you are not rebellious, then you cannot be successful. So I am pumped about this. This is going to be an amazing time. My first guest today for Keenan Live 1 are the Winklevoss twins. Right? Let me tell you, oh my goodness gracious, let me change something. Already I'm having problems. Look at that. Right out of the gate. We got to fix this. All right, I hope this doesn't change. Hope you can hear me okay. Is the Winklevoss twins. You know them from the Social Network movie. You may know them from the news. You may know them from the book Bitcoin Billionaires. And if you don't know them, you're going to know them from today. So I'm excited to bring them on. Cameron and Tyler are some interesting cats. I'll tell you the truth, right? I learned about them through the movie Social Network, of all things, right? But then got to know them mobile skiing, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So let me get them in here, and we can have a field day. Let me see this. Let me get them in here. Oh my goodness gracious. Let's welcome Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss. What's up, boys? Can you hear me?
Hey, Jim. Yeah.
Oh, what up?
It works.
It was crazy. It's just crazy. All right, guys. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So I just got to start right out of the gate. What the fuck happened at Harvard?
Gee, it's a big question. First of all, I'm Cameron. I'm got the Keenan shirt on. This is Tyler. I'm the left-handed twin. Not that it matters for this live cast, I guess.
Oh, I want to talk about that. All right, so I'm going to come back to what the fuck happened, but I want to talk about that. So from what I understand, identical twins, which we all know, are when the single cell splits. But I didn't know that in the gestation period that it has to split by a certain time. And the reason that you have conjoined twins, that shit started splitting too late and couldn't finish the process. Is that accurate?
I think, yeah, that's right. I think something like instead of the egg splitting like that, I think it splits sort of like that. And we're what's called mirror image twins. And I think about 25% of twins are mirror image twins. Most people don't know that, but it's a real thing. And so we're that. If you don't split, we'd be Siamese twins, right?
So the truth of the matter is you came really, really close to being Siamese twins. Is the point.
We have a star down. No, I'm just kidding. But that's mirror. It splits like at the final point, righty lefty. Whereas fraternal, I think, is two different eggs. There's no slitting. So that's mirror twins.
So is that true though that you split much later in the process and that you actually could have been, that it slowed, you might have come this close to actually being literally connected?
I think that's accurate, yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Though sometimes it seems like we're Siamese twins. I mean, we are like attached to the hip and we work together, similar interests and stuff. We are different people though. You know that.
Yes, but I think that's crazy though. That you hear those stories about people, saying they were about, stories they forgot something in the house, they ran inside and they ended up not getting into a car accident. You know what I'm saying? Like they tell these near miss stories. And your near miss story is you two almost got stuck together for the entire life.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so you're left-handed, Cameron, and you're right-handed, Tyler.
Correct. Tyler, right-handed.
Your personalities.
Well, I guess technically we use different sides of our brain. I guess Cameron might be a little bit more, he's a better drawer. So like with a pencil or crayons or whatever, watercolors, he's a better artist in that form of it. But I guess we take turns in being like creative. It's not like I'm not creative. It's just, I think he is a better drawer. Maybe a little more organized and analytical. Yeah. But on a relative scale, it's not like I'm disorganized. I'm just not as methodical as him. We always get compared to each other. It's not like, so it's all relative. Cameron plays electric guitar. We both grew up playing piano. I play piano today. He can play piano, but he doesn't put his time into it. And I've never really learned the guitar. Actually, Cameron's freshman roommate played guitar at Harvard, and that kind of got you excited, right? So like, oh, that's a great instrument. You can kind of carry it everywhere. We studied classical piano for about 12 years since, about the age we could count. That's basically, if you can count, you can start to play. At least the first teacher I had, that was the first test. Like, can you count? And get the rhythm. And then, so we took piano growing up, and then Cameron got to college and played acoustic guitar. And that was really cool because you could have it in your dorm room. You can't really bring a piano to a dorm room. So I guess that's why you kind of got into it, right? I think so. Yeah. It started there. And so at Harvard, I guess, so we entered Harvard in, I guess, the year of 2000. So right after the .com bubble.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an interesting time. Startups weren't really in vogue. People were still thinking about like banking, jobs after college in that sense. Startups were not where people were putting their and the tech bubble had just happened.
Oh, yeah. I mean, April of 2000, people had their ass handed to them. I'll never forget that because, ready this, my poor mom, she retired. Ready this, she retired in like 99, late 99, early 2000. And she had an early retirement from, okay, I guess that'll be nice. I'm new, so I won't say the name of the company, but a big, big telecom company. She'd been there her whole life. Now she got about middle management is where she stuck. But she still had a sizable 6-figure like retirement. They did one of those early retirement things like take your money now and we'll let you go. So she took it, and her ass hat of a financial fucking advisor took the whole thing, and dumped it into a bunch of stocks in one day. And that day was like March 3rd, 2000.
Wow.
No cost average buying, right? No spreading it out. So she literally lost like 40% of her net worth in like a month.
Wow.
I remember that. So yeah, right, as you were, gentlemen. Fucking crazy.
Yeah, I would say, so it was an interesting time because computer science was the least popular major at Harvard at that time. Some people had left to go to Silicon Valley and, sort of stopped out of school. Most of their projects had exploded. They were back. They were like 6-year seniors who, had left for a year or two. It didn't work out. So it was kind of like we started college in the wake of, all of that, basically the tech explosion. So there wasn't really a lot of people going after entrepreneurial ideas and stuff. And in fact, there was much more cautionary tales than there were success stories. Obviously, fast forward, we went back to Harvard in 2012. This is after the social network, obviously after Facebook, because Facebook launched in the winter of 2004. So our senior year, so 4 years after we started college. But then after Facebook, kind of kicked off Web 2.0 and social media, that didn't exist, right, when we were in college. We went back to Harvard in 2012 and spoke to a group of students, and computer science was the most popular major. So in the span of around 10 years, it went from the least popular, no one did it, what's that? Why would you ever do that kind of thing? Aren't you going to banking and trying to get a job at Goldman Sachs? Or aren't you going to go start a hedge fund like everyone else?
Yeah.
Like banking's dying. Like nobody wants to go to banking. Hedge funds is a shrinking industry. like everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are being a rock star. Like, why don't you have a funded startup yet? You're still an undergrad.
Yeah. So you went back in 2012. Was the guy that was president when you were there still there?
He was not.
I was gonna say, did you punch him in the nose?
No, he had the shortest tenure of, I think he was a 5-year tenure. So by the time we went back in 2012, he was not.
I'm not surprised. His leadership skills were shit. They were absolutely shit.
No.
Tell me, okay, what happened? Like everybody knows the story that you were building this thing, and you asked Zuckerberg to help with the coding because one of your guys was graduating, if I remember correctly, right? And you just needed it finished. And Zuckerberg just, go.
Yeah, so we wanted a better way to connect with students on campus. Harvard's a really big school, but you can get into your bubble like anything in life. You know, you can be in New York City and do like the same little bubble thing and see the same people. Same thing with a college campus, especially when you're in Boston or Cambridge. Around Boston, there's 50 different schools. And so we're spending all our time rowing. We're econ majors. You kind of see the same people. We wanted to connect with more people. And we thought internet, computers, social networking. At the time, Friendster was just the thing.
Friendster, remember them? Yeah.
There was no quality control. You signed up, and it was kind of like, where are the people I actually know or might know? So that's really what Harvard Connection, Connect You, and Facebook did, was building identity in your real social network, like your Harvard friends online. So we thought we could connect better with students at Harvard and the schools around by creating this. So we started that in actually 2002. We worked with a couple of programmers. One went to Google, then graduated. Sorry, he was at Harvard, graduated, and went to Google. We found another programmer, eventually found our way to Mark, exchanged a bunch of emails over a period of a couple of months. And everything was going swimmingly, like I'm almost done. And then all of a sudden, one day we pick up the Harvard student newspaper in the lunchroom. And it's like Facebook launched by Mark Zuckerberg. And we're like, is there two Mark Zuckerberg? Maybe he has a twin.
Yeah.
And so we were like totally blown over. And that was kind of what led to like, okay, we feel something wrong happened. But what is, you know, if you like maybe a breach of the student handbook, because you can't plagiarize a paper, right? If you hand it in, your professor would you'd get in trouble. So like, can a student do the same thing to another student? We went to Summer's office hours. He was very dismissive. He basically said, go to the courts. This is a legal matter.
You're being too nice. You had to be fucking pissed. Because you guys have been working on this for like, what, a year or something? 8 months, 7 months, like a while, right?
It was like 2 years. I mean, I think shock, like the feeling of I don't know, I'm sure you felt this, everyone's felt it, like a betrayal, sort of a shock. You're kind of like, not even angry, you're like, oh my God, is this real? And then sort of processing it and then trying to figure out how to right the wrong. So
why didn't you, okay, Cameron, you're supposedly a left-handed, more like free spirit one. Did your ass not walk across campus and fucking kick his door down? Because that's what I would have done.
Definitely crossed my mind. Probably not the best way to solve a dispute. At one point, Mark offered to meet with me. But at that point, the ship had sort of sailed and we felt like, look, I don't know what good is going to actually come of that. But yeah, it was a tough spring of 2004 when we kind of found out, and then met with the president. That was like a pretty disappointing, as Todd mentioned, experience. And then we were kind of left saying, okay, well, the school doesn't really want to get involved, even though we gave our code base to this guy and we believe he.
So, okay, wait. You literally gave your code base to him.
He had the entire keys to our. Yeah, he had root access to the code base.
Wow. I don't think people know that. That's one thing to say you exchange an idea and he went out. He'll say, oh, I didn't use the code base. Not the point. He had your actual code and he still did this shit.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is he was saying, like, I am a partner. I'm working with you. Things are going well. It'd be one thing if we had like one meeting and, hey, great idea, but I'm going to go do this myself. Good luck.
Yeah,
But
amen.
He sandbagged us for 3 or 4 months, which is the definition of fraud, like knowingly misleading someone. And that's really what the case was about. It really wasn't about IP or code as much. I mean, that was a part of it, but it really revolved around the misleading, like knowingly saying to us, like, things are going well. And then also IMing a friend and being like, I'm going to, F those guys in the ear.
You can say it. Fuck them in the ear, baby. Say it.
A leaked, I don't know if this is a PG-13.
Who do you think you're talking to? Come on, boys.
I don't know who this is streaming out to, but it was really around sort of reaching a partnership, fraud, and unjust enrichment, which could be anything, right? It could be a lemonade stand.
Yeah, you know what kills me on this? This is what kills me on this, guys. Tell me what you think about this, okay? First of all, I say all the time, I am unemployable now. Like, I don't know any company that can afford to pay me that would actually be able to hire me right now, because I've been working on my own for so long, and I just said this whole approach to how the world works, and I've gotten so sour with big corporations, right? What is it? Like, can people be successful and grow big businesses and be the top echelon without being a fucking complete douchebag, stabbing people in the back, playing the political game? Is that possible anymore? Or ever? Was it ever possible?
I mean, look, I think it is. We're trying to build our company that way. I think we're going to be proof of that. We are. We grew up, our dad's an entrepreneur. We saw him build a company and achieve success as a self-made guy, never doing that kind of behavior. But unfortunately, that behavior does exist, and some people can get away with it and be successful. But it's not something I would be proud of or even capable of doing. And so you got to live with yourself at the end of the day. You have to do it hopefully on your own terms in a way you're proud of. And I do think there's a lot of examples. I'm sure some great examples. Even going to athletes, right? Like, we know athletes who are amazing. They're the best athletes. They're also the nicest people. They're so gracious and they have so much grace, and they help the younger people who are, trying to get better. And then a lot of people who are like gold medalists, and they're just jerks.
Yeah. Okay, true. But here's the deal.
I know more than like life's not fair, but
yes. But here's the deal. Sports is a meritocracy, right? Sports is a meritocracy. So you don't have to be a douchebag to get ahead. You can just ski better than anybody else. You can just run faster. You can just play football better, right? But in the corporate world, they say it's a meritocracy, but it's not completely a meritocracy. And when you look, even people I admire, like I'm watching this Inside Bill's Brain on whatchamacallit. Have you been watching that on Netflix, those 3 series?
No, I haven't seen it.
Dope. You gotta watch it. And I'm convinced that Bill is because he's older, his whole mentality has shifted. But even Bill, who's all about saving the world, right? He spent hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on sewer treatment, on designing new toilets, on all kinds of crazy shit to make the world a better place, right? But when you guys had just started at Harvard, he was considered a douchebag because he was trying to corner the whole market with, kicking Netscape to the curb and embedding Explorer into his operating system, and he was ruthless, right? You look at some people talk about Jobs. Jobs was ruthless. I'm just always wondering, can you be successful and take it to the next level without being ruthless, without fucking people over? Like, just being honest and saying, hey guys, I'm going to do my own thing. Hey guys, I'm going to do my own thing. Good luck. Let's compete. No, I'm going to screw you over. And then when I'm done, look, Zuckerberg went even a step further and tried to screw over the guy that gave him the money. Holy shit. Like, what type of personality do you have that this guy was there to give you the fucking money to get it off the ground, and then you get his ass thrown out of the company, give him no equity? Who the fuck does that? I can't process this, guys. I can't process how people operate.
Yeah, I think some people think they have to play the jerk every once in a while, and that's required to be successful. And it's really not. I mean, I don't think Jeff Bezos has that reputation. He's built the most valuable company in the world. So there is proof of those kind of folks out there. And it feels like Warren Buffett can have a reputation. I mean, that guy's, buys companies and invests in companies. He's sort of like a hard guy to be so likable, yet he is. Richard Branson, lovable.
Love Richard Branson. Oh, he's my favorite. I get that guy.
Yeah, I think it's possible, but I think also those are gentlemen, and I'm sure there's women out there who value that, and there's just some people who don't. So it's your decision, but it's possible. So, you know.
So let's talk about that, actually. I want to take this further. You learned a lot of this from your family and your dad, right? Your dad and your mom. I think loyalty is a really big thing to me. Talk to me about your dad and the whole concept of loyalty and how that affected or impacted you guys.
Yeah, well, so my parents are both self-made people. My dad comes from a line of coal miners in Pennsylvania. My mom's dad was a New York police detective. So humble backgrounds. Dad's an entrepreneur, started a company, became a professor at Wharton of actuarial science, went off and built a company that consulted companies on their pension plans, and then eventually built software that consultants use to administer those pension plans. So it's a B2B business. Had these ideas and then put it into software, and then made a bet on the personal computer becoming a thing. That was really, like a given, right? And so built software for the idea that offices would have people in them that use personal computers.
That's a good bet. Smart.
It worked, right? The future cooperated. But in the 70s, the personal computer revolution, universities had computers, or some businesses were going to mainframe. It was very expensive thing. And people didn't have computers, they had typewriters, right? And so you had to bet that the typewriter was going to become personal computer. And so he did that and brought his work into software and built a company there. So we grew up in a startup. Our idea of like what we do when we grow up was to be entrepreneurs, because that's the model we saw. We didn't grow up in a household where our dad was a doctor. So maybe we'd be I think that has a big influence on you, the environment and the nurture that you're around. So we'd hang out to his office, read the computer magazines, hang out with the computer coders and engineers. So we never doubted that we'd one day end up doing something like this. Rowing was actually this detour that ended up being 15 years, but it was always sort of like this side road, and we would get back on the main road of like.
Was it your dad really, or was it your mom, or your family in general? But weren't they really sort of looking for? They're really value driven, right? Like your family was real. Didn't your dad have a real sense of values about loyalty and how you treat people and all that stuff that really impressed you? Was that your mom? Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. That's a huge thing. Like I said, they're self-made people, hard work, loyalty. Like I think that the whole Facebook saga was harder on my dad, and for him to understand how that could happen. And I'll say the same for Divya, their parents. The idea that another student would do that, like we were sort of in it, so it was like shocking to us. But as a parent looking down, I think they were just blown over. So we all have a certain value set, like Divya, his parents, ourselves, integrity, doing the right thing for the sake of doing right, not a win at all costs kind of thing, no cutting corners, not burning bridges. Because I think fundamentally, our parents and Divya's parents believe you can win inside the rules. You don't have to cheat to get ahead. And we don't believe that success is a zero-sum game. You don't have to lose for me to win.
Amen.
That's the beauty of capitalism in our system, is that the pie keeps getting bigger. We can keep growing more pie for ourselves and other people, not at the expense of others. And I think fundamentally that's philosophically what we, myself and Cameron and as a family, we believe in. That was the house we grew up in. That was the example that we saw. Like we lived in it. We went into an office and we saw, our dad restarted his company twice. So he started it once, sold it, then went off and started it again. So as kids, we saw, something being built from nothing. And I never saw him take away or cheat anyone in growing his company to being successful. I saw more people coming to work, more people being employed, and just more like value and innovation created. And I didn't see it taken away from anybody else. So I think that's, and I think a lot of people from the first company went to a second company, and a lot of those people were his students when he was a professor at Wharton. So that following him. So people, if you have loyalty and integrity, people will follow you on that journey and work with you multiple times over multiple iterations in companies, which I think is important, being a repeat.
Look, I'm a huge advocate. Like, I'm a sucker, right? I'm a sucker because I'm a sucker for people. And so I'm full on here. It's interesting. I like what you said, Tyler, about this idea that capitalism isn't a zero-sum game. I honestly believe that this is a battle that capitalism has been fighting since its inception. And up until about the 1920s, the concept of zero-sum was what led, right? I mean, if you really think about the monopolies that were created during the Industrial Revolution, and that were driven, like our boy Rockefeller was an absolute tyrant. And if you read in the stories of what he did, he would take small-time refineries and he would literally say, "You're giving me the business for this price, or I'll put you out of business," right? Like, he was ruthless. And capitalism supported that without government regulation until the 20s, until finally people were like, "Hey, wait a minute. This isn't beneficial to everybody." And so then from the mid-20s up until, I don't know, the 80s, early 80s, it shifted to this idea that capitalism can raise all boats. But I think we're back in this tug of war again, where the early concept of capitalism for zero sum versus rise all boats is really in a battle right now. And I think we're seeing that. What do you think?
Well, I think that the concept of a monopoly needs to be re-examined because a lot of these products are free. So they dominate in a way that's different than the robber barons dominated.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think innovation is a great disruptor and sort of breaker down, a breaker up of these monopolies. I like the market doing that job, but some regulation, we need to consider it, right? In general, I think that you need thoughtful regulation to promote positive outcomes. Unbridled capitalism is not good. Right. I don't think anyone would, I think few people, there are some people I'm sure believe, but would say that like the antitrust laws are put in place at that point to be repealed. I think most people agree that things are better now and more fair. But I think also the idea that you can start from the bottom and get up. Like I said, like a lot of people saw a movie, they look at us, they judge a book by its cover.
No pun intended.
Our family is very much represents the American dream. They came over here. My dad's side came over here in 1862. They were coal miners, farmers, and a few generations later, had some success as entrepreneurs and got out of the coal mine. And we went to Harvard. And
wait, your dad's dad came here in 1862. Your dad's grandfather.
So our dad's really old. No. Yeah. He's a vampire. So I think
So your dad's grandfather came in 1862.
I think that's right. Actually, I think his great-grandfather.
His great-grandfather. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. And just because I can do this to piss a lot of people off, well, I'm half German and half black. You know where my dad was black. Do you know where my dad's great-great-grandfather was in 1862?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. He was praying like a motherfucker that the North won the Civil War to get his ass up out of Mississippi or wherever the fuck he was. So it's interesting to follow these lines of whatchamacallit, right? But keep going, because we're talking about this transition, but keep going.
Right. So I think that largely in the long term, if you work hard in America, you can go rags to riches. We have that story. And the capitalist system makes that possible.
Yeah, I agree. Full on.
And I think that is one of the great traits for me that I think is so important, is that whoever's up top, there's no guarantee that you're going to stay there. And if you're down here, it can rotate.
Yes, but that's my point. It's changing, right? It's more. So I believe that. Okay, let's just take all the U.S. bullshit out of it. Whether women and blacks and minorities and all that back in the 50s, they couldn't do it. But let's just say in the modern era, right? Since let's say 1980s, I think 1985 was fairly equal. Okay, whatever. It's once people get there, there's so much resources. But depending on how you define, they don't stay there. More people can come up. I mean, Zuckerberg's an example, and so's your boy Bezos, and
Right. They started. They were privileged at some level, right? They were able to go to school and be able to do their homework to get into Princeton or Harvard. But if you look at the big names of the Robert Barons, they don't dominate business today.
No.
They are names, right? Their names are on buildings like Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, Carnegie.
They don't to work, and they got generations of people that are trying to keep afloat with that money. But let's look at the Waltons, for instance.
A lot of times those and this is not like, I'm not being sympathetic for them, but
we can debate.
When you start doing the math, it splits up really quickly.
Yep.
And a lot of times, the generations, if they haven't been successful the same way, they can't handle the things they get. So they give it to a museum like the Gold Coast. You see some of these mansions that are now museums because you can't afford to keep them up.
Yeah.
So I think this idea that you can't keep, you have to keep succeeding. We grew up in Greenwich privilege, but everybody had a lot, and we didn't feel like we could rest on our laurels. And so we wanted to be, cut our own path and do that. But, I think that, look, the people who dominate the business headlines today are largely not the same thing that did, a generation before. Bezos, Zuckerberg.
We can debate. Look, I'm a capitalist, right? We can debate the whole capitalism thing. What I can tell you is this. It took your dad, I'm sure your dad has brothers and sisters, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then his mother and father had brothers and sisters, right? Not all of them were as successful as your dad, right? So they started as coal mines, great story, but not all of them were super successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're out. My brother and sister, I haven't seen my brother in 10 years. I don't even know if he's still alive, to be perfectly honest with you. It's sad. He's dead, I feel bad, because nobody knows. If he is alive, I hope he's doing okay. So he's doing okay. So Derek, you ever hear this? You're okay. Tell someone you're okay. My sister, great girl, but she's middle of America, right? And what I learned is my dad was the only one in his family who went to college. And he did well. His whole family did well, but he did well early on. He became a psychotherapist. He taught me a lot of stuff and created a life for me that gave me opportunity, which I capitalized on. And now that opportunity that I capitalized on, I'm giving to my daughters. Right. My daughters have access to things that will increase the probability that they're successful, to leverage the capitalism that their cousins don't have. Right? And so I'm not saying, and I don't believe that capitalism is bad by its system imagination, but I get frustrated when people try to argue we all have an even chance. Some asshat like me had to push through, right, from down here, and then made it easier for my daughters. Now, one of my daughters may be dumb enough to not capitalize on it and go back down, but the other two may build on that, and then they build on that, and eventually it may come back down over generations. But the advantages that my kids have, my youngest wants to go to the Olympics in mogul skiing, right? You know how much money I'm paying in camps and equipment and trainers, that this is not a, and if she makes it, I'm not saying she's going to, if she makes it, I promise you it's her hard work, but if she was born to a poor to low and middle class family, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, look, the system is far from perfect. I think it does it right better than any other system I can think of.
Yes.
But it's not a huge problem. Okay, so take cryptocurrency. I'm sure we'll get into that later.
No, good transition. Keep going, baby.
Finance, engineering. These are male-dominated pursuits, and largely white male-dominated. If you look at the sort of the first tech boom and who got really wealthy and rich, it was a very non-diverse looking group. And we need to fix that in these traditionally male-dominated things. And I think it's got to start everywhere, right? We've got to encourage women to look at engineering as a career path early on in school and not be afraid of that. And I think it's not just a male, female, like also, different underprivileged people, right? To take computer science and all these things. So we need to get better, and these industries need to look more like the country. And that's for sure.
It's exposure and access. Like literally, it's exposure and access. You read, I forget the name of I think Outliers, right? If you read Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell talks about how Jobs and Bill Gates and a couple other people were born at a specific time that allowed them access at the right time to leverage that stuff. He said that had Bill been born 5 years earlier, he wouldn't have been exposed to this computer lab at his mom's work, the University of Michigan or University of Seattle, whatever it was, and therefore he wouldn't have got exposed to that, and therefore he wouldn't have done the code, and he wouldn't have done. Well, if you're a poor person, you're not exposed to very much. I got exposed to basic coding, which in hindsight I wish I'd done more with, because I thought it was cool. When I went to private school that my dad paid for, I was adopted by a white family, FYI. So my dad sent me to a boarding school. I got exposed to coding. Had I picked up on that coding and crushed it, had I been raised by my natural father, who was born in 1938 and was lucky to be alive when he had me, I wouldn't have been exposed to that, which means my life would have had a very, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's about exposure, exposing people to the things that would say, oh, wow, there's more than just my little world. There's more than this trailer park. There's more than this hood.
Right. And we, our dad's an entrepreneur. And so we grew up around that, around risk-taking, around that type of like art form, if you will. And so things that come absolutely second nature to us, we can totally take for granted because of that environment. And like I said before, if my dad was a doctor, I would know things that I don't know today. And it would be so obvious and it'd be so ingrained because that osmosis of being that environment around someone who had that type of expertise would just give me an advantage. So sometimes it's just like literally what your parents might do that make things easier. But then again, like there's examples where like Zuckerberg's parents are, I think his dad's a dentist.
Yep.
I think maybe his mom is too, which is very different than what he does today. So it's possible to, but his parents bought him a computer, which allowed him to get excited and curious about computers. So absolutely, like we all get certain breaks that are very helpful. It's really hard to know which ones, we grew up with a lot of kids whose parents were incredible business people and super successful, and it didn't rub off on the kids.
No, it doesn't rub off, and they fucking
they didn't have the work ethic.
Yep.
And then there's another kid whose parents are just as successful and they work like they have nothing.
Yep.
So it's really, I think it's a lot of it's like nurturing, and, some parents do a better job at it than others. But so if Mozart was born today, he probably wouldn't be composing concertos, but would we know who he is?
That's a great question.
I think Gates hit the sweet spot for building an operating system that took over the world, but would he be doing something else? I think likely. Also, Mozart's father was a great musician himself. So that, a lot of the greatest musicians, their fathers were musicians that couldn't quite make it. Right? Like
Eddie Van Halen wasn't.
Like his father was a trumpet player.
Lean in, Cameron. We can't see you, baby. Come on, see us, although we can pretend.
A lot of great musicians, like one of their parents were, a piano teacher. Like Randy Rhodes's mom was a piano teacher, right, at a school in England, and he was Ozzy's guitarist for many years and wrote some of the greatest rock songs ever. You see that a lot with the parents and stuff like that.
So I think you guys are right. Like unfortunately I'm too old now. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. Maybe it'll surprise me. But if I could have ever found myself in my shoes like Bill Gates or Bezos, or even our boy who I love to death, who I will get on the show and meet someday, Virgin Airlines, right? Yeah. I want to do what they're doing. I want to change the world. Like I want to, starting with this country, I want to change the world. And I believe there's two ways that I would do that. One is exposure. I'm going to build campaigns and I'm going to fund things, at least from education and upward mobility, right? I'm talking that. I love what Bill Gates is doing with other things, but I want to talk about upward mobility in the United States or other places. It's about exposure. I want to create as many programs that allows people to be exposed to things they're not exposed to now. Because I have always said the greatest gift a human can be given isn't the internal gifts they're given. Because I believe everybody is given some type of gift. I really do believe that, right? But I don't think that's the truly greatest gift. The greatest gift is actually finding it. It's actually finding it. So I always say, what if Tiger Woods had not been born to his dad and his dad was a basketball player? Would Tiger have found golf? Right? Right. Nor my daughter's a concerto pianist, and I have no idea because I don't play piano, nor my family plays piano, and I never put her in front of the piano. Right? So that's the gift. So the more we can expose kids, think about how many scientists that could have found the cure to cancer are living in a trailer park right now, never exposed to anything in the world of science that got their attention. How many kids are sitting in the hood right now who could have, let's say, coded the next, who could drive nanotechnology, but never exposed to anything? So our ability to expose kids to as many things as possible so that one kid who didn't think they had that talent had that thing like bam, match.
Yeah, allowing people to find their authentic self, I think, is basically what you're getting at. And most people are pulled away from it and never see it. They're the world tells them that they shouldn't be that person.
Yeah.
They shame them, whatever it is, and they don't find it, or they take years and years, decades to find it, which is really horrible. And then to your point, there's a lot of people that are trapped in a poverty cycle, or in the criminal system or wherever, and they can't get out of that. And one of the things that we love so much about cryptocurrency is it's the one technology that could potentially bank the unbanked. There's a billion people or more around the world who don't have a bank account.
Okay, talking about that, let's move into crypto because you guys, I love the story. You guys are pissed off, dejected. You can use your own words. You finally get out of this long, protracted fucking court case. You get $63 million in stock, or I don't know, 12, 20, 80% of that. So I don't know, 50 million, whatever the dumb number is. And you're geniuses, by the way. You say, fuck that, I want stock. Good for you. This is what I like about this. You guys weren't so mad that you were stupid. Like, I don't want any part of this stupid business. You're like, oh, I don't like the guy, but I'm going to ride his coattails, right? So that was smart. The lawyers
inventing the seatbelt and then deciding, oh, I'm not going to use the seatbelt when I drive a car.
Yes,
It was never about the seatbelt. It was about the behavior of an individual.
Yes, really, yes. Your lawyers were dumb enough, dumbasses. That's why they're lawyers, right? So, anyways, you take this, you're partying your ass up in Ibiza, which I would have done as well, and some cat comes up to you and he's like, yo, dog, you got to check this out. And you listened.
Yeah, I mean, at the time we were on vacation, we weren't really looking for the next big thing, but we had left rowing at that time, training for the Olympics. We had retired, and we were just open to new stuff. And one of the values at Gemini, which, as you can see, Tyler's wearing the Gemini shirt, that's our cryptocurrency exchange, is beginner's mind, sort of an openness to new things. And a lot of people don't have that. They get like calcified, whether it's through their experience of life or whatever. They just sort of close down and get set in their ways. And a lot of people aren't, at least in 2012, when we first heard about Bitcoin, they weren't open to virtual currency or this whole new color of a potential financial system. But we were at the time. We didn't really have preconceived notions. And we're like, this sounds kind of interesting. We started reading and digging into it. And we're just like, I think at one point I was like, this is either complete bullshit or the next big thing. It's as big as the internet wave or bigger. It's literally the internet of money. And that was kind of this aha moment. We were sitting around a table and we're like, we have to be in this. We have, like, whether we're investing or building a company or something, we have to be in the middle of this wave because it's a generational thing and it may not come around for another 25, 50 years. It's sort of like the dot-com bubble. If you were there in Silicon Valley, you probably did really well if you weren't an asshole.
Well, you were now, so you did kind of well.
But like, and that was kind of in 2012, and fast forward, we're 8 years later, it's still so early. People still think, oh, is it kind of late? I'm like, are you kidding me? We're in like the first inning of the baseball game here. So yeah, we found it on vacation. We were just sort of open to this new idea and this money that literally worked like email. And when you sort of looked at how payments worked on the internet, so I don't know if you remember eBay back in the day.
I bet big on it, like a dumbass. I thought it would set pricing. I thought they would default to setting pricing because people would auction and start telling you what people really thought rather than arbitrary. So I bet big on it. Didn't lose, but didn't win.
So like eBay was a super cool platform, one of the first like use cases of the modern internet. And I remember buying stuff on it. And the way you'd send
what did you buy, like a Nintendo?
I was buying like a Nintendo Lego. Just
I bought an original Nintendo in college.
Yeah, just like
I want to play Duck Hunt,
fun stuff. No like real commercial, just hobby, fun.
Yep.
But the way I sent a lot of my early payments was through the post office money orders.
Yep.
So you go to the post office, you give them $100 or whatever it is, they give you a slip, you mail it, and then PayPal came around, and I was like, that is so much better. But really, it's kind of like taking credit cards and using the existing system. It's not really payments on the internet. It's using this legacy system to send payments. And that system is like 9 to 5, and credit cards were built in the 1950s. It hasn't changed for decades. So when we saw Bitcoin and we were like sitting in Ibiza and saying, we can send, value to anywhere in the world, essentially for free, any amount, anywhere in the world for free. That was just like you sent an email, right? That was my
Now, do you still hold on to that because it's feeling like and looking like that Bitcoin is really kind of changing from an idea of a currency where you can send that money to anybody to more of a monetary standard, for lack of a better word. I'm not that much of an economist, but the idea like more like gold and less like money.
You're totally right. We think of it as a store of value, like digital gold. And it's where you store value. It's fixed supply. So we think of it as the internet's gold or the reserve currency of the internet. It's probably not the best for high velocity transactions and moving money really quickly. But it's the first iteration. It's what sort of set everything in crypto off in motion, right? So one way, like we think of it as gold 2.0. So whatever makes gold valuable, if you try to re-engineer that, but make it better, that's what Bitcoin is. So gold is scarce. There's still more gold supply being created when they mine better. Bitcoin's actually supply is fixed.
Yeah.
You can carry a bar of gold, but you can actually send Bitcoin like email. So it's more portable. And the physicality of gold is actually more of a bug, not a feature. It's like the Die Hard problem. If you want to steal all the gold out of the Fed Reserve in New York, you need like dump trucks, many of them. And then you got to get those dump trucks over bridges. And then the gold on the planes. It's very hard to like steal billions of dollars of gold. But with Bitcoin, you can carry billions of dollars literally in a USB card or whatever.
Yeah. So it's like the gold of the internet, and that's a pretty big idea. And I think it disrupts gold, right? And so gold has a market cap today of 7 trillion. Bitcoin, I'll have to pull it up, but it's maybe, let's call it like 150, 200 billion. We think Bitcoin will disrupt gold. We think it's better at being gold than gold. And so its market cap should be the market cap of gold or more.
As long as the internet remains. So,
right.
So
right.
If there is complete, global,
meltdown, we got much bigger problems. But
yes, there'll be a new currency. But yes, okay.
If people can't access social media, they might just most people will self-destruct. But so our thesis is that so we take a gold framework thesis, and we think that Bitcoin disrupts gold. We think so as of today, it could go up 30 or 40 times, and it could be a heavily valued asset. So, and that Bitcoin's just being a better gold. You don't use gold to buy your cup of coffee.
It's a store of value. It can be used as a currency. It was before we came up with paper currency and fiat currency. But today, largely, it's not used as a currency. And the same is true for Bitcoin. It doesn't need to be used as a currency or a currency to actually have tremendous value. It just needs to be better than gold. So that's kind of how we think of it. And when we got into this game, there was only Bitcoin. We bought a lot of Bitcoin on that box. It was crazy. We had to put wire money overseas to this exchange in Japan, which was a pivot from a Magic online gathering exchange. So it's a really scary thing. And now
let's keep this real. Now you bought $11 million worth of Bitcoin.
Magic cards.
What?
Of Magic cards. No,
yeah. It's almost like a Magic card.
The infrastructure was used to sell Magic cards prior to us buying Bitcoin, to show you how early it was. And that's why we built Gemini, to build like a regulated platform for people to feel safe to come in and buy Bitcoin and stuff like that. But Bitcoin's like essentially, it's like a money network. As more people get Bitcoin and send it and receive it, and that ability, it's really powerful and viral. We think it's more powerful than social networks. When we remember in early 2000s, people were like, "Oh, social networks are like a waste of time. It's where people procrastinate. These things they're a fad. They'll never really be important." We were just sitting there thinking, like, people have no idea what they're talking about. They don't have beginner's mind. They're saying, they're seeing it one way and not, the potential. So we're super bullish on this network, cryptocurrency.
What's the tipping point? So you had the big run, a bunch of speculators got in, got you to 20K. Right now it's back down to 8.3, 8.2, right? What's the tipping point?
Hard to predict. I mean, it could be something macro in the world. It could be some kind of shock. I remember in 2013, 14, there was a bail-in in Cyprus. That was an inflection point, a tipping point at that time, pushing the value of Bitcoin from a total market cap of about 100 million into, I think, $1 billion market cap. So 1/200th of where it is today. It's hard to say. Libra was an interesting development this spring. It really pushed the conversation forward once Facebook entered the game, and people were like, "Wait a second, the biggest network in the world."
Yeah, can you believe that? You got beat him. Like, this motherfucker's coming at you again, right? You must thought, Jesus, this dude does not let us alone.
Yeah, so Libra's definitely different than Bitcoin, and we would actually potentially look at trading something like Libra on the Gemini exchange, incidentally. But it pushed that whole conversation forward. People were like, wait a second, okay, let's look at the merits of this crypto thing again. So that was interesting, and I don't think a ton of people totally necessarily predicted that.
But doesn't that create more of the tension, right? So you're arguing, and I think I'm in your camp, that Bitcoin is a store of currency or store of value, right? But if Facebook launches this shit, they're launching it as a currency, right? You really can't have, Facebook shit and Zcash and blah, 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 and all these stores of currency, right? Unless
we think you can, right? Because today you have US dollar, you have euros, you have all these government currencies, you have gold. The dollar doesn't kill gold or oil.
I can take the dollar and go buy something. People aren't really still buying stuff with crypto, but then Facebook has tried. So that's sort of my point. The currency is one side of it, the yen, the dollar, the franc, the other, right? The store of value is the other side, platinum, gold, silver, right? And so it feels like you're sort of struggling in that realm. Like, some people are trying to push the idea of cryptocurrency into the area of currency, right? Facebook, use it for us. I don't know if Uber, anybody's come up, buy your, pay for your car with it, et cetera. Well, Bitcoin's over here, and you guys say, no, fuck buying shit with it. It's just going to be a store of gold. Store of value.
I think the future is going to be a host of assets, right? You have art. Some people see art as an asset. You have gold. You have commodities. You have government currencies. You have companies' equity, right? So you have all these different assets. You have a share of Apple. You have your gold. Bitcoin can live side by side with Libra, with Ether, with Zcash.
I don't think one is going to solve it all, at least anytime soon. We may not need 1,000 cryptocurrencies, but there's probably a handful that are fighting for different problem spaces and trying to solve different problems. And it's hard to be everything to everyone. There may be one that actually acts like a currency. I'm not sure if you need more than one major store of value, but you could sort of argue that, okay, you have gold, silver, maybe you have Bitcoin, Litecoin, and maybe Zcash because it's the privacy enhancing version of Bitcoin. So, the world we live in today is not just one asset, right? It was, and money has been this experiment for thousands of years. It didn't start off actually as gold, like shells, and if you're in prison, cigarettes will make do as a type of currency. So it can be many things, and it's been this experiment that's been evolving over time. There was gold, and then there's paper money, and there's paper money back to precious metal, and then it's Bretton Woods, and it's not that. So I think it's just this constant experiment that will keep going on. Cryptocurrency is this new iteration on it. There's no centralized, government or issuer. It's this decentralized, immutable, digital ledger. And I guess that's what's so interesting about this. To us, it's so inevitable. This was always going to happen because it's always been happening. Since the invention of money itself, we had a system of barter, and that didn't really work because how do you trade a half a cow, for all this corn? You got to bring all this heavy stuff to the market, and then you could get robbed on the way to the market. So it's why don't we just, invent this thing called money that allows these trades that otherwise wouldn't happen? It solved what economists call the coincidence of wants dilemma. And so money's invented, but people have been, iterating it on for forever.
So you guys are fading out. There you go.
So it's did we actually think that those iterations are going to stop? I think there's a story. I don't know if it's in a myth, but the U.S. Patent Office closed down at one point because they thought every possible invention that could have been invented or thought of.
Yes, in the early 1900s, they said everything that could be invented has already been invented. I just heard that the other day. Yes.
Yeah. And it's they shut it down. That to me is the same argument. It's money, the money we have today is going to be the money we're going to have tomorrow. It's as silly as the patent office closing down because every idea that is worth thinking of or patenting has already been thought of. So we thought this, I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a failure of imagination. People just get calcified and they're oh, well. And in the first world, look, credit cards and our money works pretty good. Talking about advantages, being born in America, that's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
There's 1 billion plus people around the world who have no access to a bank, financial services, money. But crypto, with a smartphone, you can start storing and sending value, which is huge. And to plug, are plugs loud? You can get the download the Gemini app on your phone, and you can onboard in 2 minutes and then become part of.
I'm doing it. I buy crypto every single day. Every single day at the same time, every day.
Are you doing the recurring buys or?
Yeah. Hey, where's my love? I'm the one who found the freaking bug in your recurring app.
Yeah. You're like a QA engineer.
Yes. What am I getting for that? Come on.
You're an emeritus Gemini engineer, but and there's tens of millions of people in this country alone who are underbanked. That's why the Square Cash app is so popular. It's been, I think, listed in something like 50 different rap songs. It's a very popular app for people who can't get access to traditional banking services. So Square and mobile apps like that are solving problems. It's not the JP Morgans of the world, and they're not going to be building bank branches in these developing parts of the world. If they could, they would already be there.
Do you remember long distance telephone calls?
Yeah, Sprint, man. Of course I do.
You're I forgot.
Yeah, dude, I'm old as dirt.
Well, like, why did that? Why doesn't that exist anymore?
Because of mobile phones.
Right, mobile phones and voice now travels over the internet.
Yeah, it's digital.
Right. And that's what crypto is doing to money.
Okay, so I'm in. It's going to be interesting to see. Look, I'm sold. I'm buying it. Right. I mean, I don't think. I'm not convinced, like anything else. I still think there's some risk that over time, it's a long game, and the long game is going to pay or it's not. I'm not too worried about the weekly or daily swings, but it's still going to be interesting to see how it plays out, right? I mean, does gold want to be replaced? Some of the big values of things that, store value are the whole idea that if the whole world shits the bed, I still have something of value, right? Well, if the whole world shits the bed, is there still an internet? And if there isn't an internet, then my cryptos isn't worth shit. But I got that gold. You know what I'm saying?
There's like internet satellites circling the world, and I think Elon Musk is trying to put more satellites into space and low orbit internet and stuff like that. People are trying to put blockchains up in space on satellites. So
no matter what happens, if we're living like
the world might go to hell in a handbasket, and we'll still have like the Bitcoin blockchain.
As long as power. All right, I like that. All right, so besides Gemini and besides Bitcoin, you guys have another passion.
Skiing.
Skiing.
That's how we met. Yeah. Can't wait. Yeah, so we rode for 15 years, from about 15 to 30. And by the time we stopped rowing, rowing had been in our life more years than it had not. So we did that for a long time. So mogul skiing is sort of like a way to, take that energy and find something else that we're getting better at and not only getting worse at.
You guys are making amazing improvements, by the way. Amazing improvements.
We got to catch up to you.
Yeah. I'm not gonna let that happen.
But yeah, no, it's been a great. Like, I think sport is such a metaphor for life, and it's such a great teacher. Whether it's mogul skiing, trying to get better, run a marathon, rowing, testing yourself mentally, physically. You don't become good at any of this stuff overnight. I think we live in a culture, it's like, oh wait, like overnight success, Cinderella story. And that's just in the movies. And so like coming from a rowing background, it's made a big change over months. Like a year or two, you like become a different athlete. So when you start a company and you realize like it's going to take 5 or 10 years, you're like, of course, like, cause I couldn't get there. There's no corner cutting or quick fixes or becoming like a champion athlete, a great skier or whatever, overnight or in a week.
But why mogul skiing? Why did you pick that one? There's a lot of shit you could have picked.
So something like when you watch someone come down a mogul field and do it well, to me, it's so like pleasing to the eye. You've got like the upper body's basically still, and then you got these legs just moving. It's just, I don't know, it looks really awesome. And like, I guess we sick, right? And we used to see videos of like hot doggers, and you're like, those guys are amazing. Like they're
right. Growing up, they were like the best skiers in the mountain. You wanted to be like that. But yeah, that's a great question. Like, look, we also have gotten back into surfing. We love surfing, love the water, the beach. I find like the mountain environment or the beach are like the coolest nature, like the energy, and the camaraderie is pretty amazing. Like everyone's happy on a mountain. Everyone's like super stoked. Like they're stoked for you. They're stoked for them. Like everyone's like having a great smiling. And largely, I think at the beach when you're surfing, like people feel the same way. So to us, it resonates on some visceral level.
I think also like it's hard not to be present when you're on the mountain. Like your phone is, in your pocket. You're not really like, if you're skiing, you're not like looking at other stuff or looking at emails and stuff like that. There's a social component. You're riding up the lift, but it's also a counterintuitive sport, which is kind of interesting. Like you get more control by leaning down the mountain.
Yeah.
everything was saying, lean back, like, no, don't be in. To become good at the moguls, you got to become really good at turning on the flats, right? Go to the basics, get those basic things down, and then go try up a level in the mogul field. And it's the same thing with startups, right? Sometimes you just have to lean in and push through a tough spot. And so I think that's a cool challenge. It reinforces like those life lessons on the mountain over and over again. And there's days where I'm sure, we've gone out and you're like, I should probably quit this sport. Like I can't even put on my skis properly. Like I'm going backwards. And then you have those moments, those breakthroughs, and you're just like, whoa, that was amazing. And that feeling when you put in the work and made the change and you get that.
So our next guest on Keenan Live 2 is Mikhail Kingsbury, gold and silver medalist at the Olympics for mogul skiing, and basically the Michael Jordan of mogul skiing. And we've been talking about innovation, we've been talking about capitalism and all this. You want to see innovation or progression, watch Jean-Luc Brassard, the first gold medal winner in '92, watch his run, then watch any run from Mikhail today, and Jean-Luc Brassard looks silly. Like it's not even in the ballpark. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a good example of how things have progressed and moved and changed and innovated and got way better.
Well, yeah, and I think there's something about pioneering, right? You cutting the path the first time is very different than coming in later. Mm-hmm. So, and you see this even in the sport of surfing, the type of aerials that the young kids are doing are so much more advanced than the top pro surfers in the 90s. So in a lot of sense, the athletes today are standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, they're pushing. Yep.
And they're pushing, and they're like, oh, that's something I have to have. That's a default trick. But one day that was like earth shattering.
Yeah.
So, and it's going back to money. It's like, yeah, that's what crypto is doing. It's pulling money forward. It's modernizing it. And Mikhail has, picked up the baton and he's taking it to the next level. And that's what the future generation should always do.
Right. I mean, if you look at like big wave surfing, they're like there's like tone surfing now. So you can get like bigger waves. You find like a wave at Nazaré, Portugal. And you're like,
Hilton. I remember when Laird got crap because he put the little
yeah. Well, you remember what was that movie? It was either Riding Giants or Step in the Liquid in the early 2000s. Like everything he did that was like earth shattering in that movie is now like you can go on YouTube and find like 100 guys or girls.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's interesting to your point. I remember, and I'm just getting into surfing now, but I remember back then. Maybe it's my personality trying to disrupt shit. All the people were trying to like say, well, he's ruining the sport. He's really not surfing. Putting those toe pieces on the surfboard. And now those clones realize you can't surf a 75-foot wave without the toe piece.
Right. It was all about the tour. Like big wave surfing was like second place constellation. If you can't do the tricks and hang with Kelly Slater, you just go into big wave. And now that's like it's a sport within a sport and totally different. But like speaking of sports, like with rowing, we actually there was no rowing team at our high school.
Yeah.
We had a club like 30 minutes away, and we basically built the program at our school. And today in Greenwich, the town we grew up in, there's hundreds of kids rowing every day. And it's like, you can't conceive of a time where there wasn't rowing in Greenwich, which is super cool. But like we joke that was like our first startup, creating the rowing team. There's plenty of water and stuff there, but nobody had sort of asked the question, hey, why isn't there rowing here? Let's try this thing. Everybody go.
And your mom was helpful too. She had to drive you like 35 minutes or something to some beat up old freaking, right?
Yeah, behind every Olympic rower, there's a very strong mom, very committed and supporting. It would have been so easy to be like, oh yeah, like wait, what does the school offer? Okay, we'll just pick one of those. But I guess we're the guys who are crazy enough to be like, I don't like that answer. I'm going to go out and build it for myself. And we effectively built a program so that we could become rowers and then became Olympians. And I think that's like sums up entrepreneurship, and very much our journey is ask the question, not satisfied with the answer. All right, let's solve the problem. And we invest in someone. We try to do that with Bitcoin exchanges. Couldn't find entrepreneurs doing it the right way. Eventually said, screw it. We're just going to have to do this ourselves. And we've talked with other entrepreneurs like Richard Branson. It's the same story. Just didn't like, what he couldn't find the right option or whatnot. And
it's usually built out of like a frustration or something.
I love what you said. I think I'm going to make that a t-shirt, right? I don't like that answer. That's my favorite thing. I don't like that.
You're not going to do something about it.
Well, yes. But that's the jumping off point. I don't like that answer. Yeah. Because I think they're tied together. Someone may hear an answer and dismiss it. But when you get to the point is, I don't like it, there is something inside of you that is triggering, that then drives you to take action, right? There actually has to be a place for that to land that says, I don't like that, based on what, right? What I think it should be, how it should happen, what I think, what the world should look like. If you don't have that should piece, then you can't really get to, I don't like that answer, because you have nothing to bounce it off of.
Right. There's a visceral reaction.
Yes.
Inability to accept like that answer. And I don't know what the tricks Mikhail is doing today. I don't know what they're called, but there was a point where someone said, you can't do that. Like the human body can't do a 720 inverted.
I think he's working on a cork. It's not a cork 10. What is it? 7 to 10, 1080, 1080, 1080. I think he's working on a cork 1080. I think is what he's working on right now.
Yeah,
into the moguls, going 25 miles an hour.
It's insane.
Crazy. All right, so I want to ask one more question. I want to get personal for a second. I want to ask one more question. You guys lost a sister.
Yeah.
How did that impact you? I lost a mom when I was younger. And I was 25, so I wasn't younger. And so over time, it's actually had more impact on me as it did when I was 25. At that age where I'm like, I'm fine. And yeah, it sucked. And I was a blabbering, crying baby at her funeral. But I was already out of the house. You know what I'm saying? But as I get older and I look back on the influence that my mom had on me, and my mom was sudden, she had diabetes, so I saw it coming. But I also got to learn what an amazing woman she was through all of that. And it has an impact on how I look at things, how I take on the world, and regrets that I didn't do certain things with my mom, etc. Tell me a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about, losing your sister. How do you think that impacted you guys? And how do you think that, if at all, drove how you look at loyalty and your relationship with your family, etc.?
Yeah, it's definitely the hardest thing that's ever happened to me. And I think I can speak for Cameron. We try and live our life in her honor to the best we can. Life's not fair, and you're going to take hits. You're going to have loss and grief. And we just try to keep moving on and carry her with us. It never goes away. It can change a little bit. But it's super painful. And it's one of those things that no matter who you are, it's a normalizer. Whether you have a lot of money, a little money, it's the same. Nothing insulates you from that. So this happened when we were in college, and then we went on to row in the Olympics. We actually named our boat the Amanda Jacine in her honor. And we had great games. We didn't medal, but for first time, our first international race in a two-man boat, our first race together at that level, we did quite well. And a part of us feels like she was there. And so
I like that.
I think about her often. Even though she passed at 23, we were 20, she will always be our older sister. And I often think about her, like what she might think about this if I have a problem, or just talk to her. We can all do that. Someone doesn't have to be here physically to be here. And spirituality in that sense is definitely something I'm working on a lot, and thinking about and exploring at my age. I think, when it first happened, it was like, let's got to keep going and growing, and she wouldn't want you to, stop. I think now also it's sort of connecting with that part of yourself and that spirituality. So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that you grow up and you never think like that's not going to happen to me. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen to my family. And then it does. And it's similar to probably your own immortality. Like you think like you're immortal, and then you get older and things happen, and it's probably, the brain changes a little bit. You have kids and you start to see the world differently.
So, you have kids? Something you didn't tell me?
No. That's like a moment that changes your perspective. But look, it's tough. I mean, I don't know if I'm making sense. But yeah, it's something.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that helps lessen the blow a little bit is just time and family and friends and support. We were like 21, I think, in college. And like you, we were young, and it's like, okay, let's keep moving or whatever. We were young, and it's like, okay, let's keep moving or whatever, But I think as you get older, you try and continue to reflect on that and connect with that, because she is such a big part of her life. I mean, we had the best big sister ever. If you think we've got a couple of good ideas and a couple of things up her sleeve, I mean, she was super talented and awesome, and just a loving, great person. And that's, we'll carry that with us our whole lives. And so she sort of speaks through us, I think, every minute of every day.
Yeah, I mean, people, they meet us and they expect that we have another sibling, and we do. She's passed on, but there's an energy where it's like, you guys, it's not just you guys, right? And that's kind of fun because she's there, but we were the runts growing up. She was like so talented, star of the play, star athlete, incredible student, gorgeous on the outside, but even more so on the inside. Like, she was grace personified. Walk into a room, light it up, and she would treat everyone the same, which was so powerful, to see that example. And I think it's very, very rare. So I could go on forever about her, but beautiful person, and we miss her every day, but she's with us.
So as a father, period, but I don't know boys, but as girls, so I guess it'd probably be the same. How did your mom and dad take it? Did it affect your relationship with them? Because, I don't know about other parents, but, every once in a while I get this, not fear, but I think, God, what happens if I lost one of my kids? And I consider myself a pretty strong dude, but man, the first thought I have is mush. Like, if I had lost my daughter, any one of them, in a tragic sense, I'd be a freaking mush. And I don't know how I'd be able to maintain the relationship with the other two and how I'd move on. And I just can't get my arms around that. How did your parents get through that? How did it hurt? Like, you know what I'm saying? How about you guys with them, all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in short, it brought us together, which was nice, a nice reaction. I think it's hard to know, but I think, there's no word for a parent losing a child, at least in the English language, because it's so unnatural, and it's so not something that anyone should ever have to go through. I think in some ways it might be harder for a parent to lose a kid than a sibling. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, just try and stick together and get through it and realize that, the world's not fair. I think it can happen and enjoy it while it lasts. But, we have resilience. Like, that's the thing about our family. And I think that human beings have resilience. They have the right support. I think you have more resilience than you think. And when you're putting these kind of situations, you're really tested. But I have confidence that you and other people can rise to the occasion and can move on. We're sort of evolved to have that strength. But you need to have the support, the spirituality, whatever it is. you need to reach out for help and have that to get through, because it's not something you want to do alone. We were on sports helped us so much.
We did teammates and basically a family at the boathouse that was super helpful and supportive. So we could sort of slip back into that world, and we had 50 plus teammates, amazing people who were supportive and there through and through. That was really helpful. I think if we weren't on a team and at a different time in life, it could have been a different,
We were very lucky to have that support. All of our teammates came to the funeral. We got right back to training. We went to England and raced that summer. So we were very fortunate to have incredible friends that are still friends to this day, incredible coaches, mentors, all around us. And all that love and support, that's what pulls you through it.
Yeah. All right. The whole thing freaks me out. Like I don't like to go there, but you can't help from go there. In the weirdest of worlds, don't everybody get mad at me because they're all gonna get mad at me. But I remember I wanted 3 kids, and the reason I wanted 3 kids, I felt 2 was too single threaded, because I had a friend who he was one of 4 brothers, and by the time he was 35, 2 of them were already dead. Right? How tragic! And I remember thinking, oh my God, like the parents have got to be freaking out. But beyond that, imagine if the parents only had 2 kids and they lost them both. Only had 2 kids and they lost them both. Like, so in my little warped mind, I wanted 3 kids just in case something happened to one. That it wasn't just me and the one kid. We're all sitting around moping the idea that we lost half the family, right? So the whole concept, I can't get around it. I applaud you guys for coming together as a family, because not all families do that. It tears families apart. You hear those stories, right? It actually does just the opposite. So I think one of the things I'm getting just in our conversation and getting, having known you guys and all this stuff is your family value system and who your parents are. Maybe we should get your parents on this show one of these days. Is just amazing. And anybody that doesn't get the impact that parents have on children and how that is generational and cyclical is smoking crack. And how our system and systems, whether it be governmental, non-governmental, business, etc., can have a positive or negative impact in that cycle, which then drives out the very people who live in this society that we need to rely on to make it a better place to live. Right? It just reinforces that.
Yeah, we're social creatures, and anybody who thinks that they just exist in isolation or aren't a product of their environment or their past or their parents and their parents' parents are just fooling themselves. I mean, you said your father was down south in the 19th century. Like, that has an impact, right?
Yeah.
And that's not an impact just on him, but that's going to travel. There's a cycle. And it sounds, I mean, I'm sure you've done a lot, with that. And it sounds like you're in a really healthy spot, but like, that's hard stuff to deal with and carry with.
It is. All right, gentlemen, let's wrap this up because this has been dope. I have really enjoyed this. Each of you, okay? Cameron first. Where are you most different from Tyler? As far as which he may not even think you know. Like, where do you think you are the most different than Tyler? Tyler's here, you're way over here. Like, Tyler's a Trump fan, and you're a Elizabeth Warren fan. Like, right? Like, where do you believe you are way, way, way away from Tyler? And then Tyler, where do you think you're way, way away from Cameron?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question.
Strength.
Maybe we'll have to come back for another episode to answer that.
Wow.
We're very very different. Our values are super identical and aligned, and that's why we're a good team. And our goals sets and stuff, but we have different preferences. Sometimes the song's on the radio, and you may like it, I may not. So that's why it works. He's lefty, I'm right.
What about chicks? Does one of you like tattooed crazy chicks and the other one like all buttoned up girls, right? And then you're like, is that there a place you differ? You like the same girls?
I think similar type, probably. Yeah. I'd say guitars, like my playing guitar and Tyler playing the piano, is probably like the biggest differentiator so far, in the sense that I'm putting hours towards something that he kind of doesn't have much of a sense of like what I'm doing with my time. And the same is true a little bit with piano, though I did play piano growing up, but like those are pursuits that are sort of individualistic that he's not really part of, and not really part of his journey on that. Whereas like skiing, we're kind of generally skiing the same mountain at the same time. So
in the same skis, in the same skis.
Actually, skiing is where I'm a lot better. I'm over here, and he's like back here.
Am I going to see that this winter when we ski? Am I going to see you eat them up?
you're going to see me eat
I'm going
him
to be
up.
smoking him.
Oh, even better, even better, even better. All right, listen, boys. No same ski bag.
Yes,
Yeah,
we got different
Working on
colors.
that, yeah.
Different colors.
All right, guys. Hey, this was dope. I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. We will see each other on the hill. We got to figure out how to make that happen.
First chair coming up.
All right. Listen, guys, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. Everybody, thank you for listening. This was Keenan Live, where we talk to the interesting, the rebellious, and the successful. And I think we just saw why those three traits make us successful. All right, folks. Until next time, this was Keenan on Keenan Live. Thank you very much. You know what I'm going to say? Peace.